good morning to everyone. On behalf of Bharti Institute of Public Policy, I take this privilege to warmly welcome all the esteemed dignitaries and delegates to the inaugural plenary session of the Public Policy Dialogues, Bridging Research and Practice. First of all, I would like to invite Ms. Navika Kumar, Group Editor, Times Network, Editor-in-Chief, Times Now Navbharat, and Dr. Arushi Jain to come on stage for the lighting of the auspicious lamp. In a world where political and socio-economic landscapes undergo constant and rapid transitions, deliberation among practitioners and researchers are a useful medium to find solutions to emerging and existing problems. To fulfill this objective, Bharti Institute of Public Policy is delighted to host the first annual Public Policy Dialogues as an intellectual congregation where researchers and practitioners can learn from shared experiences and insights to generate new visions for policy development. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Professor Ashwini Chhatre, Executive Director, Bharti Institute of Public Policy, to come forward and deliver the welcome address and give a conference overview. Professor Ashwini Chhatre.
Thank you, Nimisha. It is my honor and delight to welcome you all to the first Public Policy Dialogue. The few minutes that I want to devote to this welcome address before we can get on with business, I would like to take this opportunity to introduce what is different about what we are trying to do here and to build on what I believe you already know, since you have been receiving communications from us for at least the last couple of months. The policy world itself has changed a lot in the last 10 years. First, because of advances in technology, which allow for better, faster, quicker communication, allowing a more diverse and larger number of stakeholders to be able to voice their opinion, their concerns, as well as their opposition, sometimes quite vociferously. I think it has served a great purpose in strengthening the policy process, and our outcomes are stronger because now we are able to include more voices, perhaps not fully and comprehensively in the policy outcomes, in text, in letter, or in spirit, but certainly during the consultative process. So technology has played a huge role in making this possible. The spirit was there, but, well, the optical fiber was missing, and it is there now. An accelerator came in the form of the pandemic. The technology existed, but we actually did not try to get 5 people into the same virtual room to talk about stuff that needed to be talked about. We waited for physical meetings. We waited for everyone to find times, whole days on their calendars when they could be in the same city, in the same hour for a 45-minute meeting. COVID changed all that. Now, we are quite happy to not have to go to Delhi for that 1-hour meeting because it can be done online. And while virtual has several drawbacks, it has added to our ability to communicate faster, quicker, better as a gift from the pandemic. We are building on it. We, however, as part of the design of the public policy dialogue, wish to not forget the importance of in-person free dialogue, communicating ideas in opposition and contradiction to each other, while staying on the cutting edge of possibility. Policy is nothing but existing, standing on the cutting edge of possibility and looking beyond. It is about the adjacent possible. It is about scanning the horizon for what is possible. We will talk a lot about what is possible, and some of these possibilities are dangerous, which we want to avoid. So it's not only about the better world that we must foresee and create. It is also the dark underbelly of these potential futures that as stakeholders in policy making, we must be first aware of, and then make sure that those who are responsible for making policy are equally aware of those. And the choice of words here in the title reflects that sentiment. It is not a conference, it is not a dialogue, it is an exchange. If we think of this as a series of conversations that perhaps only happen to be taking place in person, it is something that we look forward to, especially as an occasion which now appear to be diminishing. The more opportunities we can create for people with different voices to come together in the same room and express these as equal stakeholders, not perhaps to the power, but possibly the possibility of a better future. I therefore take delight in welcoming you to this series of dialogues. I hope that this is the first of many, and I would like to convince you that this is an effort that the Bharti Institute at Indian School of Business is committed to pursuing, and I look forward to your support in this endeavor. I hope you will enjoy the sessions over the next 3 days, and as much as you enjoy the sessions and the conversations that happen on stage, I also welcome you to enjoy the informal interactions that will happen outside of the auditorium over food or other hot beverages that we are all fond of. I will sign off here, and I also look forward, along with you, to a series of invigorating discussions over the next 3 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Ashwini, for the welcome address and sharing your valuable thoughts with all of us today. Moving further, I would like to invite Ms. Navika Kumar, Group Editor, Times Network, Editor-in-Chief, Times Now Navbharat, to deliver the introductory note for the inaugural plenary panel deliberating on the topic Public Policy Design and Implementation. Ms. Navika Kumar, everyone.
Thank you very much for having me here. Presenting anything before the panel, the August panel that's going to take over, is a little daunting, and especially the time of the day. Journalists normally don't come fully into their own this early in the morning. But I'm very grateful to be here at the ISB, and thank you very much for having me here for this opportunity. I am extremely impressed with the topic that we are dealing with today, because herein lies the Guru Mantra of success of India as a country. as a nation, how we deal with public policy, is going to determine what India's future is going to be in the decades to come. Many people say that it's already too late, but I'm a born optimist, and I always think the time is now to begin. It's never too late to begin. And therefore, dialogue on public policy is something that is so welcome and such a huge need of the hour that I'm very happy that the ISB has picked up this topic for deliberation, because this really could be the starting point of the great ideas that can come in, that can take India forward. We've often heard of two major advantages that India has had. Advantage number one, that we are a democracy. And that is a huge advantage because, frankly, we are all free to think, to speak, to ideate and do what we want to do. And that's a huge plus, which is the foundation on which we begin to work. The second advantage is the demographic dividend that we talk about. We are 135 crore people, 1.35 billion. But has it really worked in our favor so far? I don't think so. It is there, the latent potential, but it hasn't worked. And why it hasn't worked? Because everybody looks at us as a market. But what are we looking at ourselves as? For us, the population dividend can actually cut both ways. That means we have a population which we have to feed, which we have to educate, we have to provide health for. And all of this, what does it require? It requires economic growth and economic power. And we may be the 5th biggest economy in the world, and we're very happy to be there. But it's not just enough to be happy about the position. Look at our per capita income. We are at $2,200 per capita, $2,200 per capita income. And the bigger economies ahead of us are in the range of $50,000, $60,000 per capita income. That is the difference that we are talking about. So there is no need to emphasize that if we have to grow and become a superpower, the only way to do it is to become an economic superpower, because weapons and missiles, we know there are countries that have tried that. Russia is an example, and we all know where it is today and what it is doing to the world. So I definitely don't believe that is the route for us. The route for us is really to become an economic superpower. And to become an economic superpower, the need of the hour is policy. And I know there is a very, very well-equipped and very well-experienced panel that's going to come up. So I just want to lay the ground for them to ideate on when they come up next. Policy making, from the beginning, has been a top-down approach in our country. The government decides, the bureaucracy decides, the bureaucracy frames policies and hands it down, and somewhere along the way, after years and years, some changes come in, some legislative changes come in, some amendments come in, and even what we know in the first instance requires a whole lot of time to change because it goes through various levels, number one, and number two, the 5-year governments that we have. Sometimes 5 years is too less, in framing policies for a long-term vision. And then you have to start all over again when a new dispensation comes. So my request to the panel would be to really talk about why are we so inward-looking in policy framing. It was good in the past when data, research, and information was only accessible by governments. With internet, with the information revolution as it has happened today, The government is not the fountainhead of all knowledge and information and data. Expertise exists outside the government also. And that is also an Indian resource. Why are we shy of tapping those resources which are sitting there? So that is something that I would want policy dialogues really to come up with, a framework where you can tap on external agencies and researchers. And in every field, I think we have brilliant superstars who can actually contribute to nation building. And we should be able to tap that fountainhead of potential energy that lies in India. Number two, we started off late, liberalization happened later than other countries, yet we've really adapted well to the changes. I was just sharing at breakfast a little anecdote. When I came into Delhi, to cover government and policy making, telecom was the sector which was just opening up, and I came in at that point in time. And it was a mess because there were corruption charges, everything had gone to courts, and at that time, there were 2 or 3 or 4 companies. There was no talent within the country which had any cutting-edge experience in this field. And you picked up resources from the public sector undertakings and planted them in the private sector. But it didn't work very long. It didn't work very long. And today you look at telecom, the public sector undertakings in telecom, they're struggling to survive. It is one bailout after another because the employment is so huge that it is a political time bomb that governments have to deal with. And they really are not functioning efficiently. And on the other side, look at the private sector. Are there learnings there? Can we pick up a leaf or two out of the book of how private sector has grown? But very often what we see is that there is a huge deal of suspicion when it comes to taking research and know-how from the outside. I think we need to get over a little bit of this inner suspicions that we have and move forward. You may not accept everything that is suggested by various think tanks, public policy groups, private sector. I don't think policymakers have to pick up everything that is said to them. But to have a pool of resources, to have a pool of ideas, and then to pick the best and the most workable ideas is the way forward. It has begun to make a difference with the current leadership, and I have absolutely no problems in saying that the current leadership under our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, is very aware of the fact that there is a lot of expertise out there, and he does, appreciate some of that and tries to use it as much as possible. But the pace needs to be faster. The impediments within the system need to be addressed. And I think the one big issue is communication. And because I come from mass media, I want to emphasize that part. Communication sometimes resolves a lot of issues. And it can't be possible for the top echelons of the government to sit in free exchange, idea exchange programs and sit and brainstorm. But why do we call it brainstorming? Because it's always said that 2 brains may be better than 1, and a room full of ideas may be better than 1 person sitting and thinking alone. So I think policy making needs to go in that direction. It can't be endless brainstorming, but there must be more communication, more give and take, more ideation at certain levels where time is available. And then it should be filtered and given up to the topmost echelons of the government for policy framing. And The one big issue and impediment that I see is that it almost always becomes confrontational. Government versus the others. Government versus think tanks, public policy, private sector, media. It's not meant to be that way. We are partners. We are halves of the same whole. So instead of being confrontational, we need to walk together. Draw your lines. I'm sure, wherever the countries and the topmost agenda for the government to think about is national security, and that will always prevail, and I have not seen any citizen of India challenging the government on national security. Opposition parties I'm not talking about. It's more about rhetoric than actual opposition. But nobody questions the government on national security. But other than that, I think there should be communication. And while I agree with Professor Ashwini that communication has improved after COVID, we've become used to doing team calls, Zoom calls, and having ideations, not going and wasting time for a meeting. But I still believe, old school maybe you can call me, but I still believe that feel and touch is important. Physical meeting is important. Two of us, if we have different opinions, maybe a handshake resolves a lot of things, which maybe a 2-hour meeting virtually will not resolve. So we need to find a fine balance between these two things, and we need to engage a lot. The emphasis now has to be on quality of life, on the per capita income growing. It's not enough to be number 5 in the world. The 5th largest economy means nothing when you have a population as large as India does. You have to concentrate on this. You have to look at, export being a part of our existence. We have to have a part of the global pie. It's not going to be enough to be inward looking. And how do we do that? If you're going to be happy every time there is a financial disturbance in the international markets, we actually pat our backs and we say, oh, see, India is not affected. We are not affected because we are not there. But just because there are a few hiccups along the way, there cannot be, we cannot be votaries of being an inward-looking economy. So we have to move forward, and policy frameworks are extremely important. And Mr. Srinivas is here doing a great job in training our young bureaucrats getting into governance. But governance, in its meaning, has made a paradigm shift. The way our bureaucracy training structure is made, we have a lot of training for them initially, and then they go and they become literally the rajas of their old fields in districts. They are the people who take all the calls. They are the people where the buck stops. They make all their decisions. And they do that for 5, 8, 10 years. And then they come maybe sometimes to the central government. And then they are a cog in the wheel. How do you adapt the mind of such people to come out from the field, to get into policy making, where they are probably at the bottom of the pyramid, not, or maybe middle of the pyramid, not at the top? So are we training them? Are we giving actual emphasis to expertise in an area? Or generalists are very good, but sometimes you need expertise. That's an important area. Are we focusing enough on that? That's a question I would want the panel to reflect upon. The biggest issue is also communication. Mr. Srinivas and Mr. Amarjeet Sinha, we were all, Mr. Mohapatra also here, Dr. Mohapatra, we were all exchanging on how many things are changing in the government. But we don't talk about it. We don't communicate. Why are we shy? Because if we are making positive changes, the country should know about it, because it gives me as a citizen a great deal of confidence that, okay, these changes are happening, the policy making is in good hands, they are doing X, Y, Z, and so much of thought has gone into it, so much research has gone into it, and it gives the whole country a degree of confidence. And people take that confidence, which is an important part of ease of doing business. So ease of doing business is not just an index made by the World Bank. Ease of doing business is also confidence, which is an intangible. And that confidence is so important to bring into the system for investments to happen, for employment to happen, and for all the economic growth that we are looking for. So the way forward for economic growth will have to be a robust and an open way of policy framework. We will have to have training, and training is not a bad word. We should be trained even when we are possibly at the peaks of our careers. We need more training at that point in time, because we are leading teams below us. And those teams have to learn from what we set as examples before them. So training is so important for the leadership. It's not important only at the lower stages. It's important especially for leaders. And that is something we must concentrate on and bring forward. Communication, I cannot emphasize that enough. And somewhere or the other, one thing that I keep hearing is, the Prime Minister has the mantra, minimum government, maximum governance, but it doesn't work that way in the practical world. One decision has to go through, oh my God, I can't even begin to say how many layers. We have to compress the layers. How do we do that? What is the system? I know we have committee of secretaries, I know we have empowered groups, I know we have CCEA and the works. We've grown up last 25 years covering all of these meetings. But has it really increased the pace of decision making? Yes, maybe some large companies, some large decisions where the PMO is involved, things move. But can the Prime Minister's office be involved with the 5,000 decisions that need to be taken? It can't. So top 50, top 100 may get the attention and may get the ease, the rest. So how do we cut that? Red tape has reduced, corruption has reduced, it has increased productivity and pace, but miles to go before we sleep. These are some of the key areas, but the biggest thing that we need to tap, and sometimes we don't pay as much emphasis on this as we should. The biggest strength that we have is the passion of every Indian, and the passion of every Indian to take this country forward. You know, that is a reservoir that is waiting for you. That is waiting for all of us. How do we channelize that? The policy, public policy dialogues must address this issue. Again, I'm focusing on some of the intangibles, but these intangibles can be the catalyst that we are looking for. Having already missed the bus on many occasions, you know, we are not the manufacturing hub of the world. We are not the investment hub of the world. We are not the export hub of the world. Vietnam does more exports till recently than we do. A very small country. But despite that, we do have the expertise, and above the expertise is the passion of every Indian. And the one thing that works when all other technology works, when all other technology fails, is the Indian jugaad. And that Indian jugaad, to my mind, may not fit in with the processes, that you teach in business schools or you follow as processes. But I know in my newsroom, Something's happened somewhere. We didn't imagine that something would happen in that place. I don't have a reporter. And what gets me through at that time is my jugaad. I'll pick up the phone, I'll call somebody, I'll do something, and some jugaad works, and we always get there. That innovation, that streak that exists in us, sometimes makes us sail through where all laid down processes fail us. I'm not saying that policy can be based on jugaad, but I'm just saying that those innovations do exist. How do we channelize those? How do we use those to our advantage is something that over the next 3 days we must deliberate upon. Because finally, at the end of the day, a country like India, which has so many states, so many regions, so many languages, so many religions, it's our diversity that actually is our strength. We can all come together on that one common platform, which is the passion to take India forward. We must channelize that passion. And this is the only factor that binds us together as a country. Thank you very much.